Another thing that we do is we go through a lot of 2 mil poly bags, and 2 mil is just 2 millimeter thick. It's almost like a Ziploc plastic bag, and we have a bunch of different sizes that we use. Everything from like a 10 inches by 13 inches for books and small electronics, all the way up to 20 by 20 for larger items. And sometimes we'll even put bags together to have really really big ones. If we have a really big toy, for example, we want it protected in plastic because the Amazon warehouse is not that hospitable of an environment. It's dusty, and I don't guess it matters that it's noisy, but it is dusty, and you want to make sure things are protected. And we wrap them in 2 mil poly bags plus tape, and then bubble wrap if it's really something. We'll talk about bubble wrap here in a second, but we want to make sure it's protected. And once again, we want to create that perception of quality and perception of newness, right?
Right.
So
value. You're creating that value proposition for these buyers.
Yep. And so there's a bunch of places to buy it. We buy ours at Packaging Suppliers of America, PSA, which is here in Denver. There happens to be a distribution warehouse here, so we actually go pick it up, and we get a great deal because of that. You can also buy from them online and have them shipped to wherever you live. Same with Uline, and even some people resell these on Amazon. That's where we first started buying them before we discovered PSA. So just use this stuff. Buy different sizes. We even have smaller ones too. And also buy the ones that have Ziploc closures on the top because for some reason they're less expensive. You'd think the ones without the Ziplocs would be cheaper, but they're not. It's kind of weird.
No, they're not. It's very interesting.
It's strange. And anything that's fuzzy has to be wrapped. So if you have a stuffed animal, it has to be in plastic. If there's a nose exposed that's fuzzy in a box, you have to make sure it's wrapped. So just keep that in mind. And we wrap just about everything, especially new items and books that have slip covers so that they don't shift and move and tear. So we're just once again protecting for the warehouse. How much do you use polybags, Kat?
I use a lot. I actually have a sealer that I use to seal them. I don't shrink wrap them, but I seal them. And
Cool.
I have to say, I started out not covering much of anything. I mean, I really did start off sending most everything in just naked, as we say, just the way it came from the store, except for the stuff that Amazon required me to cover. But as I've been doing this longer and I've gotten more into, making sure I protect myself from these returns and making sure the customers are really happy, I've discovered that it is a really cheap insurance. It takes a couple of extra minutes and it makes the presentation much better. So my returns have definitely gone down since I've been paying more attention to my preparation.
Very cool. All right, and then we go through lots of bubble wrap too. So we get it in these giant rolls. I mean, literally, they're $25 a roll. They're 12 by 12 inch perforated. They're perforated every 12 inches, so you can just like rip them off. And we use them to protect fragile items and also to protect the sides of boxes sometimes if it's a fragile item that's going in, and even as filler sometimes if we need it. And by the way, I don't have too much of a slide on filler here, but you can use just about anything except for those styrofoam peanuts as filler. Do not use styrofoam peanuts as filler. Or newspaper. It can't be printed. So you can use everything from grocery store plastic bags, which whenever we buy items, we get a bunch of plastic bags anyway. So we recycle them right back in the box. You can use pieces of cardboard. We make our own kind of pieces, kind of sometimes Frankenstein mode. We'll like, hey, we need this little area filled, so we'll fold up some cardboard and tape it and throw it in there. Just about little boxes can be used. Like if you have little boxes sometimes, once again, they're just little cardboard boxes. Just make sure the writing is crossed off with a magic marker, and you're good to go. By the way, we use these giant magic markers to make sure we cross off all the barcodes for everything. We used to use labels, but don't anymore.
And you've got some great ideas about this PSA and buying. If you have a local shipping supply, that's probably going to be your best bet.
Definitely.
But if you end up buying in line, I have to put a plug in for some friends of mine. Mark and Robin Levine have a small family business at bubblefast.com, and they are wonderful. If you don't have a local shipping supply place, I strongly recommend you check them out because as you're getting started, you can order smaller amounts of things, and you've also got someone that you can call up on the phone and say, hey, I'm just starting FBA and I need to cover this particular item, and they can help you with it. So if you have a local place, that's definitely going to be your lowest price. If you're ordering online, you're just getting started, I'd like to recommend just my friends. No kickbacks here. They're just good friends of mine, and they'll give you a fair price on some good items.
That reminds me too, if in a pinch, you can always buy boxes at Home Depot. So those moving boxes are
Walmart.
perfect. Walmart
Yeah,
too.
Walmart. I buy several there when I'm, like I said, in a pinch. And
Yep.
try to order them and stack them ahead of time. But if you can't, you can always go by Walmart and pick up a couple, or Home Depot or Lowe's.
And we rarely pay for boxes, by the way. We get most of our boxes at Tuesday morning. So their boxes are fantastic. They come in every size and shape imaginable, and we get them for free. So I would definitely suggest making friends with the store managers at places like Tuesday Morning and getting your boxes for free rather than paying for them. But we have had to pay for them in a pinch where we ran out. I had to go to Home Depot, and Tuesday Morning was closed. So, as far as boxes go, once again, it's another way you're going to avoid damage. Make sure your boxes are really carefully and tightly packed.
Yeah.
You don't want stuff moving around. I mean, the boxes could end up upside down. One of the things we started doing relatively recently was, I'd say within the last 4 or 5 months, we actually have fragile stickers with little arrows that point up that we put around the box before we ship it. I'm not sure if that makes them kick it harder when they drop it.
Now, with the post office, you can't do that because it makes them hit it harder. I wonder how that works with UPS.
I'm not sure, but at least try to keep. We want it to try to be kept upright, but we try to pack it assuming it's going to get flipped and moved around, and stuff is going to happen, right? So be careful about packaging it. If the items are especially fragile, another thing my girlfriend will do is she'll put actually an extra, like almost a box within a box, so the edges and sides are protected for very fragile items. In addition to the bubble wrap being around the fragile items, like kind of like a giant crate for the the item. She'll also protect the sides and the tops. We always protect the tops, by the way, because they're going to slice them open when they get them to the FBA warehouse, and one slice and it could cut into your item. So we'll put an extra box on top of it before we seal it, right? And,
all right. Also, remember that when you're packing that top, at some point along the journey, that top could be the bottom.
That's right. Yeah, for sure. So do both top and bottom, so you never know where it's going to get opened, right? And we already mentioned tape is your friend. Use the crisscross tic tac. Have you seen these commercials where they just run one line across it on the bottom, and that's what Amazon does when they ship, by the way. But I've always said I'd rather have multiple points where the tape's holding just in case something happens. I don't want the golf balls spilled all over the back of the UPS truck, right? We've probably seen the commercial for the 3M tape, but crisscross it, tic tac it. I do like one across where the seam is. I do both sides and tape those down, and then crisscross back and forth across, and then back and forth again on the other direction.